Welcome to this edition of Music for Dancers, where we help great dancers build a stronger connection to the music every day. And today we're going to work on part 2 of our series on phrases and feel, and how the phrases build and the feel changes occur between phrases. Our goal is to make sure that our dance is somehow reflecting the music, and when you understand how the musicians are changing the feel at the phrase point, it makes it much easier to think about what our dance should do as well. One of the things the musicians love to do is to put some markers in the music to tell you where you are in the phrases. It's not just random. We had a concept that came up earlier in this series that says, music ain't random. And it has some structure. And in that structure, when phrases are developing, especially at the very end of a phrase, as the musicians have worked through, and if it's an 8-bar phrase, at the very end, they love to put little markers in that tell you we're going to the next phrase. It could happen after 4 bars, it could be 8, could be 12, but they're putting markers in the music, little sounds that you can hear, and you will start identifying that, in this song, that's the sound they're using to mark the end of a phrase. In dance tunes, this just happens all the time. So let's take a simple example, a tune that's slow, that's very, very sparse, where there's not a lot of music, so that we can very clearly hear these markers in the music. And I'm going to be counting for you, and I need you can participate. You can use jazz hands if you want. But at the end of every 4 bars, there's a little synthesizer hit. And it's telling us, hey, I've just gone through 4 bars. And this way, as you're dancing later to this song, you know that 4 bars have gone by. Now, they didn't put it there as a dancer so that I would know 4 bars would go by. They did it because it marks the end of a phrase and it makes sense musically. 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. So on the end of 4, at the end of every 4 bars, there's a little keyboard hit. 2, 3, and 4, and 2, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. It's not going to be as obvious in most tunes. It's not going to be this simple, straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. But it's there, and the similar ideas are there in so many tunes that you're already listening to, you just get used to. In most songs, it's not going to be that straightforward, where on the end of 4, every 4 bars, there's a keyboard hit. But in this song, it's a great learning example, so go buy this song, Cassie, me and you, invest $1 in yourself, and own that song, and listen to it 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 times, and get a feel for where those hits are. And after a while, you'll start seeing the same exact concept occurring in song after song after song. The musicians are going to give you something, some sound that tells you we're moving on to the next phrase. Now, this tune is a little bit of a departure for us. Everything we've done in this whole series has been based on bars or measures that are 4 counts. There's 4 beats in every single measure. And now we're going to switch over to a tune by Clarkston called Breakaway. And it's just an example that these concepts we're talking about, apply to all sorts of different music. And this one just happens to be in 6. So rather than the measure being 4 or 8 beats, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these same concepts would apply if we were talking about a waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This one happens to be in 6. Now, the probably 4 concept still applies, so if you need to, run back to the other clips and look at probably 4 and look at bars and measures to make sure you have a grounding for this one. But now, in this case, we'll be talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's our count. Now, the other concept we want to introduce here is that within a phrase, there's also some dynamics or a direction going on. And as a musician, I always think, what direction is this phrase going in? Is it going from low to high? Very common. Is it starting quiet and staying relatively calm for a period of time until the next phrase point? But which direction is it going is something that we're thinking about as musicians. So what you want to do as a dancer now is listen to the internals of a phrase and see, are they building? Very common. And then at phrase points, they may drop, and then they'll build again. And over time, you build this little stair step where you go up through a phrase and then you drop it down. Then you go up again and then you drop it down. And that continues to happen throughout the whole song. And then we get to the end, we have a big part of the song, and either it ends or it comes back down. But the musicians are always thinking about what direction is it going. So let's listen to this tune. It's in 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as I've said before. And then within the phrases, there's internal things happening as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. That was the first 4 bars, and she's going to repeat it to make our 8-bar phrase. 2, 3, 4, 1. And we brought everything down. So if we were following the shape of the song, we were a little bit up, we brought it even down, and she started the story. And she's just nice and relaxed here in this first 8 bars of the story. 1. Do you realize she added a second voice there? So while I'm talking over it, it's difficult. It's why you have to buy the song, own it, and you'll listen. You'll hear her having 2 voices playing at the same time, and she's building. So the shape of this phrase, especially at the end here, is building multiple voices. The drummer's playing, and you hit a cymbal there to bring us into that next section. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. And now this is the second time we're repeating this section with another 8 bars that mimic the first 8 bars. And if you notice, the music was going up in little stair steps, and she's kind of at a mid-level here. And she brings it back down for the new phrase. 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're back to the feel that's in the very beginning. This is actually a repeat of the introduction, but we only did it for 4 bars. 1. It's obvious that being in 6 really made no difference in terms of these principles. We still have the probably 4 concept occurring, where we had these 8 bars, and then we had phrase points that were occurring every 8 bars. We also, in terms of the shape of this song, you saw the introduction was at a certain level. We dropped it down a little bit. We stayed there for, I think, 16 bars. We went up, and at phrase points, we went up or we went down. So you need to buy the song and listen to that. Additionally, there's an exception that occurs later in this song to the concepts we've been talking about. So you should buy it and then put the comments in YouTube or send them to me on Facebook where you hear the point where there's an exception to what we've been talking about in terms of the phrases that occurs in this song. It's fascinating study, and you'll get a lot out of it when you go through and you understand it yourself instead of just listening to me. For the last song in terms of phrasing, we're going to talk about a tune called Yo No Sé Mañana. And I love watching people dance this in the club because there's 100 different interpretations that they could take. For our purposes today, we're going to talk about the phrasing and how it starts at a very low level and it builds up and then it kicks into a more traditional salsa feel. But the beginning, the phrasing is just very laid back and it's fascinating to watch. 1, 2, 2. Now, in the introduction, it doesn't sound like it to some people, but all the musicians know that time has already started. And if you choose to, you could be counting through this section. Now, as a dancer, it would make sense to do something simple at this point. Now, many people will not pick it up, and if you're in the club, it's really hard to pick up, so you need to buy the song, make sure you're listening to it on a good sound system. But in the second 8 bars, they brought up the intensity by, number 1, the vocalist started singing the story. There's also a shaker that came in and some light conga playing. And then in the third 8 bars that just happened here, we added more percussion. The percussion got more intense, and he repeats his singing in terms of adding more to the story. And then at this particular point, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 4. And you can hear that now we have some horns that are playing, the percussion has come in, the piano player's playing the traditional groove, and we'll talk about that later. It's just that there's a lot going on right here, and as a shape, it started very low, worked its way up, and every 8 bars got more intense until We now are repeating the introduction that he did earlier, but it's more intense. If we were following the shape of the tune and it started here, at this point we're definitely more, even though we're back to the same feel as the introduction. And it's a great song to study, the flow of it, what happens in terms of the shape in the phrasing. The more you study it, the more you'll start understanding it, and these concepts just go on, whether it's salsa or waltz. So really, go buy this. Me talking over it makes it difficult for people to hear the details, but you want to study it without me talking over your music. So as I mentioned earlier, that song's a very fascinating study to watch when people are dancing it, because it has such dynamic range that the dance really should reflect that. So when that song in the beginning is so laid back and there's so few instruments, we shouldn't be doing our most intense materials. We need to think about, how do we dance soft? How do we dance laid back? And have the feel, but not have the intensity at that point, because we want it and saved for the end of this song. Your homework assignment is to get a copy of that song, put it in your car, and replay it over and over again as you go into work. And we're going to listen for some different things. Number one, what we've been talking about these last couple tapes, the phrases and the phrase points, which are occurring every 8 bars in this particular case. Number two, what's happening with the shape of the phrases, where as we move from one phrase to the next, sometimes they increase intensity, sometimes they go down. And we want to think about, when we're dancing, how are we going to respond? Well, an obvious thing is, if the musicians bring the intensity up, our dancing intensity should go up. And the converse is also true. If they bring it down, we're going to become more laid back. And the more our dance reflects the intensity of the musicians, then the better off we are, and the more musical our dancing will become. Now, we first need to hear it, which means listening to it over the car so that we hear it happening, because when we're out dancing, we don't have the mental bandwidth at first to do both great at once. We need to understand it off the dance floor, get the phrases working, hear them, and then we don't have to think so hard about it while we're out dancing. And obviously the phrases are the building blocks of the music, and since we're always going back to principle number one, which is that music has structure, as a dancer, I'm hearing the phrases going by and I'm listening. Are they making it more intense, less intense? What are the musicians doing between phrases? And then the shape inside the phrases, as well as the overall song. So this concept will be repeated over and over again. We'll fill in more details. It's still just an introduction, leaving out many, many things we could talk about. I'm really excited about the next couple tapes, where we're going to talk about enhancing your learning process for the music and things you can do to allow you to learn more and more at a faster rate. So you need to take this one, you need to rate it, you need to go ahead and share it with your friends. Don't be selfish. There are other dancers out there that could use a stronger connection. And so we're going to see you back on the next edition of Music for Dancers.